Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a topic that's really tough for so many families. It's that loss of self-care skills, especially something like bathing when a person is facing cognitive change. For many, this is what our sources call the bathroom battlefield. It's that part of the day that just becomes filled with anxiety, maybe refusal, and just exhaustion for everyone.
It really is. And our sources today are looking at this problem through a very specific lens. It's called behavioral gerontology.
That sounds a bit dense.
It can be, but the idea is actually very simple. It's the science of translating, hard behavior analysis into practical, and I think this is key, compassionate caregiving strategies.
So our mission for this deep dive is to pull out a research-backed strategy from that field, a three-step plan.
Exactly. And it's not focused on forcing the person to comply. It's focused on changing the environment around them.
We're going to start with this story of Rick and his wife, Flo, where, just getting through a shower became the single most draining part of their entire day.
It's the ultimate paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
The thing that seems the most mundane, the daily routine, suddenly creates the most conflict. What we want to show you is how these really subtle environmental tweaks can preserve a person's independence for months, sometimes even years longer. It's just about understanding the behavioral mechanics at play.
Okay, so let's unpack that. When a skill like showering, something we've done our entire lives, starts to fade, I think the common assumption is just, well, they've forgotten how to do it, the memory is gone.
Right.
But what if the problem isn't the memory itself, but how the brain is processing the environment you need to do the task?
That is the essential insight here. That's the shift in thinking. We have to ask the right question. Why is showering, of all the things we do on autopilot, often one of the first routines to break down?
And the answer isn't memory loss.
Not primarily, no. It comes down to cognitive overload. It's not a lack of cooperation or, it being difficult. It's a cognitive bottleneck.
A bottleneck, so the brain is just getting stuck.
Yes. When you're dealing with neurocognitive decline, a few critical functions start to go. First, the ability to sequence a multi-step task. Wet your hair, then pick up the shampoo, then rinse, then dry. That sequence gets lost. And second, the brain struggles to filter out sensory information that used to be totally irrelevant.
So all the things we just tune out, they can't do that anymore.
They can't. And what that means is the automatic nature of the routine, which used to be helpful, now actually works against the person. What was once effortless now requires this conscious, step-by-step thought process that the brain just cannot sustain.
So you mentioned these cues in the environment, things that tell us what to do next.
Exactly. We call them discriminative stimuli. It's a technical term, but the concept is simple. Seeing the bar of soap on the ledge used to be a clear signal, a stimulus that said, pick me up. But now, if the brain can't filter, it sees 5 different bottles. It sees the shimmer of the chrome faucet, the shadows from the door, the sound of the water. It's all coming in at once. And the signal, the cue, it's just gone, drowned in noise.
And I can just see this brutal cycle starting for the caregiver. The person gets confused.
Which leads to hesitation, to anxiety.
Which then leads to refusal.
Yeah.
And that refusal triggers very real distress, maybe even resentment in the caregiver who's just trying to help.
That's the negative feedback loop right there.
Well,
The person feels overwhelmed, the caregiver feels ineffective, and the outcome is a battle. Behavioral gerontology says, stop fighting the battle. Don't force the task. Fix the environment first. Because if the path isn't clear, all the talking in the world isn't going to help.
okay, so if the root of the problem is this environmental confusion, this noise, where do we start? Let's go back to Rick and Flo. What was the first real step he took?
Well, he had this aha moment. He realized Flo's bathroom wasn't just a bit cluttered, it was visually loud, sensory cacophony.
Visually loud, I like that.
And this leads us to step 1, which is stimulus control.
Stimulus control.
He looked at the research and realized he had to drastically reduce all of the competing stimuli. The specific intervention, it sounds almost deceptively simple. He removed everything from the shower area that was not needed for that one specific shower.
So he got rid of the visual noise.
Completely. The 6 different bottles of shampoo, the cleaning supplies into the sink, the extra towels on the rack. He pre-placed only 1 shampoo bottle, 1 bar of soap, and 1 washcloth.
By limiting the choices, he basically eliminated the decision paralysis.
Oh.
That sounds so obvious when you say it out loud, but I bet most people would never think of clutter as a cognitive barrier.
We don't. We just see it as clutter. But the goal of stimulus control is so elegant. You shape the environment so the right behavior becomes the easiest behavior. And the results for Flo were, well, they were immediate. And frankly surprising, she stopped freezing in the shower almost right away.
So it wasn't that she suddenly remembered how to shower.
No, it's that the physical world around her finally matched her brain's processing abilities. She could see the next step because there was no noise competing with the signal. The path was clear.
So the big practical takeaway here for you, the listener, is prep work. Before you even guide the person into the bathroom, you prep the room.
That's it. Remove the clutter, adjust the lighting to get rid of any harsh shadows or glares, make sure the room is warm, and pre-place only the items needed for the next 5 minutes.
That seems manageable. But dealing with the room is one thing. Dealing with the emotional pressure of the actual interaction, that can be harder. Which brings us to step 2. Subtle prompt hierarchies. I think caregivers, especially when they're tired or stressed, can default to just barking orders. Pick up the soap, wash your hair. What does this behavioral approach suggest instead?
It suggests we move completely away from verbal commands, at least at first. We move into what's called a prompting ladder, or a hierarchy. And the research is really clear on this. The best prompts are quiet, they're gentle, predictable, and, this is critical, they are fadeable. You want to be able to pull them back.
Fadeable, meaning you use them less and less over time.
Exactly. You start with the least intrusive prompt you can, and you only increase the level of assistance if the person actually gets stuck.
Okay, walk us through that ladder. What does least intrusive even look like?
The very first rung on the ladder is a positioning prompt. You simply stand where the person needs to look next. You use your body to draw their gaze toward the sink, or the soap, or the towel. No words.
Okay, and if that doesn't work?
Then you move up to a gesture prompt. A small, simple point toward the washcloth. Still no words. If that doesn't work, you can try a light touch prompt, gently guiding their hand toward the soap. Not gripping it, just a light guide.
So only after all of those nonverbal cues fail do you actually speak.
That's right. Only then do you move to the verbal prompt, and you keep it short. Here's your soap. Not a whole sentence. And the very last resort is the modeling prompt, where you actually demonstrate the step yourself.
You know, it sounds like it would take a lot of patience and focus, running through that hierarchy in your head, especially for a caregiver who's already burned out. Is the time investment really worth it?
That's a really important question. And the short answer is yes. It pays huge dividends in the long run because it reduces refusals. It reduces future anxiety. The caregiver's job isn't to do the task for them. It's to make the path visible. And you preserve their independence in these tiny microseconds. By fading prompts the instant they aren't needed, you maintain those skills for so much longer. That saves enormous amounts of time and emotional energy down the road.
And that successful interaction, even that tiny one, connects perfectly to step 3, right? Reinforce every win.
Yes, it's all about that positive reinforcement.
We're not talking about, throwing a parade every time they pick up the soap.
No, nothing like that. It's small, timely rewards. A simple smile, a nod, a quiet, "you got it," or "that's perfect." And it has to be timely, right after they complete that little micro step. This is where the emotional core of the science really becomes profound.
Why does that simple nonverbal reinforcement matter so much in dementia care?
Because while the brain might be rapidly losing its ability to hold on to verbal information, they might forget your instruction the second you say it, it absolutely holds on to emotional resonance.
So they might forget the words, "use this towel," but they remember the feeling of calm or security.
Or approval, exactly. A pleasant tone, timely praise, a reassuring smile that leads to a calmer body. And a calm body leads to more cooperation, less anxiety. The research shows that calmness is a teachable state. It can be reinforced. By providing that positive emotional resonance, we're not just maintaining hygiene. We're maintaining dignity. We're maintaining their sense of self-efficacy.
And these steps, really, they're about so much more than just getting clean. They are about maintaining a person's identity. Bathing, grooming, these are such core parts of who we are.
Absolutely. And the study we mentioned with Rick and Flo, it reported really clear results. Significantly less stress for him, the spouse, calmer mornings for both of them, and most importantly, much longer maintenance of Flo's ability to actually participate in her own hygiene. By giving her back control over these tiny moments, her dignity was preserved.
So before we wrap up, let's pull together some of these key points in a sort of caregiver's corner. Let's hit the 3 big questions that always come up. If a listener wants to try this structured approach, what's their first action plan?
Okay, your first action plan is a simple routine. First, prep the environment. We talked about that. Second, guide with the least intrusive prompt you can. Start with gestures, not words. Third, reinforce calm and cooperation. And finally, Track the pattern. You could use a simple log just to note which prompts worked and which ones caused hesitation. We call that a shower success map. That tracking makes you proactive instead of reactive.
Okay, now for the elephant in the room. Resistance. When someone refuses to shower, is that a behavior problem or is it a memory problem?
It's almost always both, and they're completely tangled together. The memory loss makes it hard to sequence the task, right? That confusion then triggers an immediate feeling of being overwhelmed, which leads to avoidance. And that's the behavioral response. So by fixing the environment and using those gentle prompts, you're targeting both the confusion and the anxiety that it causes.
And what about forcing the issue? If it's been a few days, should a caregiver just insist?
The sources are unanimous on this. Never force the shower. Insistence always backfires. It skyrockets their anxiety and basically guarantees more refusal next time. You're sacrificing all future cooperation for maybe one immediate success. It's a loss-loss trade. You have to build on success. If they only manage to wash their face today, that's the win you reinforce. And remember, frequency is flexible. Comfort and dignity absolutely come before a rigid schedule. Showering every other day is perfectly fine.
This whole approach, it really seems to boil down to honoring the person's current cognitive state, where they are right now, rather than trying to drag them back to how they used to be.
That is the core philosophy. That's it in a nutshell. What looks like non-compliance or being difficult is almost always just cognitive overload, environmental confusion, or too many decisions. We don't try to make the person stronger. We make the environment softer. We make it simpler. And in that soft, simple environment, the person's ability to function just shines through again.
It's really remarkable. Just by simplifying the visual landscape and using this gentle, predictable guidance, you can have such a profound impact on maintaining dignity,
Yeah.
on maintaining identity. You're honoring the nervous system as it is.
And that actually leads to our final provocative thought for you to consider. If subtle environmental noise, clutter, bad lighting, too many choices, if that can shut down a necessary life skill, like bathing for someone with cognitive decline, what other areas of our own daily routines are we unnecessarily overwhelming with stimuli? Think about it. For ourselves or for others, how many decisions do you make before 9 a.m.? Maybe simplification is one of the keys to better mental health for everyone, regardless of age or cognitive state.
An excellent thought to end on. If you're looking for a little more clarity in your own life, maybe start by clearing the clutter. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into behavioral gerontology. We'll see you next time.